Well, good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Sales Director Incubator. We're recording this from our respective homes today, so hopefully technology holds up. My name is Mike Dixon. I'm the Director of Sales and Marketing for AXR Recruitment and Search. Today's guest is Chris Sadler, Sales Director of Inova Pharmaceuticals Consumer Healthcare Business. Now, Chris has got over 20 years experience in sales, but and he's worked across a variety of industries and also organizations as well as countries. So he's worked in the UK, the US, the Middle East, and now Australia. He's worked for Heineken, GSK, BAT, Blackmores, and now Inova. Really looking forward to getting to Chris's career journey. Welcome, Chris. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. Good morning. Thank you for that introduction.
That's all right. We'll pick it apart in more detail as we go. But offline, Chris, we just started talking a little bit about the Euros. You can tell by your accent certainly where your allegiance probably lies. So can England go all the way?
Oh, look, that's the $1 million question. As a deluded Englishman who's been convinced I'll see a major tournament win in my lifetime, I have to say yes. And after the early start yesterday at 2 a.m., seeing England eventually beat the Germans for the first time in about 55 years at Wembley, then I think we probably can. So, I'm looking forward to the next couple of weeks and seeing how it all plays out for England in the Euros.
Yeah, well, I'm one of the rare Scotsmen who actually quite like England to do well. So I kind of over my lifetime, I've seen so many good English teams not quite reach their potential. So hopefully they can do it this time. But anywho, just kind of we're also chatting about just getting out and about during COVID. We're obviously at home today, but I was walking the dog this morning in the park, which was absolutely heavingly busy. In the Sadler household, what is it? Dogs, cats, a menagerie? What have you got?
Oh, look, we did follow a lot of the nation probably about 12 months or so ago, and I got badgered by my two girls into eventually getting a puppy. So we do have a new addition to the Sadler family. So dog arrived probably about 14 months or so ago now. I eventually let down my guard after lots of no's because it is a busy household, and then suddenly you're facing into weeks and weeks of working from home. There wasn't really much of an excuse to be able to say the poor thing would be left on its own. So there is now an extra addition, which is great. As you say, it's nice to start the day that way with a walk around the block and grab a coffee and just get out and about in the mornings.
Absolutely. What did you go for? What dog?
When you're on the northern beaches like me, if you haven't got anything other than a sort of spoodle or a cavoodle, then you don't fit in. So we've got little Ronnie, who's a little black spoodle.
Yeah, excellent. It'd be like a miniature version of my dog. I've got a Portuguese water dog, so she's everyone mistakes her for a kind of oodle of some sorts, but
Yeah,
she's as we say, she's a pure breed.
yeah.
Very snobbly.
No, they're great. So, someone said to me while I was walking him the other day, they were just like, aren't dogs great? And I was like, yeah, sweeping statement. We quite like him. And he just went, no, the reason I love dogs is they just force you to slow down. And with sort of first 3 months of COVID and now the next couple of weeks working from home, I've sort of reflected on that. And it is very true because 3 times a week, the little fella, or 3 times a day, sorry, the little fella gets a walk around the block. And I deliberately do it without the phone and just to get a bit of a break. And it is just that half an hour, 3 times a day, you are forced to slow down and just let him go and have a run and get some fresh air. So never looked back since the little fella arrived.
Oh, brilliant, brilliant. Love him too. I love that statement. Aren't dogs great? I concur. Let's get into your career, Chris. Lots to talk about. And as always, we'll kind of go through a few different parts of the conversation. We'll talk a bit about your career. We'll get into advice from your perspective on how those either on the podcast or on today's live call can think about their career and what advice you would give them. And then we'll take a view from the top, as in, what's it like in your role? And we've got a few things we want to get into there. So, but we'll be finished by 8:45, guys. For those of you who are on the live call, there's a chat facility. Please feel free to get involved, ask questions as you go. Anything that I see there that I think is going to add to the conversation, we'll ask Chris. So jump on. So let's start off, Chris. Out of interest, how did you get into sales? How did it? What was your first step in?
Oh, look, I think if you go right back to the beginning, I came from a family. My dad was in sales, my mum was in sales. I did business studies at university, and I did what certainly in the UK at the time was classified as a sandwich degree. So it was a 4 year degree. Third year was a year in industry. So I was fortunate enough. I went into a big company, big FMCG business in the UK, and did that. Within that year, you did 4 placements, 3 months each in different departments. So one was sales, where I actually spent some time out on the road with the sales reps, or working on their sort of trade counter, or just seeing how the general sales world evolves. And then I spent another 3 months within the marketing department, and that was probably my first insight. So doing business studies, taking that experience of a year in trade back to uni, I then sort of specialised in different areas, specialised in sort of international marketing and business law. And then my very first sort of step was I was quite lucky. I came straight out of university, and via an application process got accepted onto the GSK graduate management program. So, and that was their first year actually as GSK, from their merger of SmithKline Beecham and Glaxo Wellcome. They had a big recruitment drive. And my first year, my first role with them was as a sales rep. So you went through quite an intensive process. From memory, I think there was 19 others and me within this graduate intake that year. You went into their consumer health business in the UK, and you were pretty much trained up as a rep, given your territory, and sent out. And that was what opened my eyes then as to the world of sales and being involved with customers, how big global organizations work, and you start to sort of see the structure and carve out a path from there onwards.
Great. And how long were you in that program for? And did you mentioned you got experience of marketing, and as a lot of grad programs, you get exposed to other parts of the business. I wish there was more grad programs like that around now. But um, did you always think you would end up in sales, having experienced other parts of the business?
Look, I probably did. I knew quite early on that I liked that interaction. I liked the cut and thrust of actually sort of having a sort of going out and doing sales, and doing the deals. What I knew I was never going to be that person that wanted to be sort of office bound. The freedom that being sort of given a set of car keys, a laptop, and a
Yeah.
mobile phone, and being told on the first of the month, "I'll see you on the 30th for the sales meeting," was nice. I was empowered and invigorated from very early on. Sort of 22, let loose from university, and no one was sort of looking at a watch if you turned up at 9:05. And I spent 10 years with GSK and moved through their business. I was fortunate enough; some of it was hard work, and some of it was right place, right time. But I had a phenomenal time at GSK, and sort of moved up the ladder there because they had the right program in place, and opportunity was there for me to do so.
Great, great. And you mentioned before, you know, I guess in a business like GSK, you're the level of learning and development and training you get is pretty good. As your careers evolved, does that change? Is the assumption made as you get more senior that you don't need much training? It's more about what you can do for others, or are you one of these people who kind of seeks out ongoing learning and development?
Look, it is a key question. I think, honestly, the higher up you move, I think there is this viewpoint that you are now the one responsible for training others. Um, and therefore, to continue driving your own development, that does sit with you. And certainly as an individual, I'm by no means sort of the finished article yet. I've been successful and been very lucky in the career that I've had. I've worked for big FMCG organisations with big L&D budgets, and I've always been on the end of either internal or external courses. But yeah, I mean, for me, I think it does slow down a little bit. You do need to drive that yourself, and I think that comes from either working very closely with your HR business partner and saying, my team are coming through with these training courses, or I'm developing these guys doing X. But as an individual, I would still like involvement and developing on different areas. I mean, one of the things that I've focused on over the last 18 months is very much around mental health. It's something that probably two words when I first started in my career were never used. whereas now it's something that you read and talk about and have to be aware of every single day. So it doesn't always have to be what's the next director's program can I go on. It can be something a little bit softer, but something that we certainly need to be aware of nowadays. So I know I'm part of sort of a mental health coaching program that we have through work.
That's really interesting. I think the assumption is often that training and development is, to dial up technical skills, but as we look at every kind of study on what makes a great leader over the past few years, it's about how they engage with people, inspire people, and connect with people, and connect people with the business and the vision, but actually understanding the individual, understanding how they feel from a mental health perspective has to be a big part of that. And I'm really interested to hear you say that. I think we talked about it very briefly in the program last year with Nick Dawes from Ferrero, who talked about his own experiences and how important it was for companies to invest in the capability of others to understand mental health. And I think he used the term mental health ambassadors. So is that something that you're now equipped to kind of help others or spot potential problems? Is that how it works?
Oh, look, you certainly hope so. I mean, the people are your biggest asset within any business. So I don't have a career or a successful one at Inova if I don't build a team around me, and I don't sort of have a team that are enjoying what they do and have a culture in which they can speak openly and honestly, whether it's about work or whether it's about how they're feeling and coping. And I'm no expert in that sort of mental health space, but at Inova, we've done a great job recently, sort of over the last 18 months, actually put in official roles of what we call mental health first aiders. So that there's people within the business that are there that have gone through some external courses. I think as leaders of people and of big teams, whether it's your immediate sort of leadership team or whether it's the wider team that sales directors have underneath them, you just need to be aware of the extra pressures that people have now. There is a world outside of work. People do have life challenges. They do have that pressure of work, dependent on what industry you're in. Over the last 18 months, you might be up, you might be down. You have to be aware of what it's like now when you are sort of caught up in a lockdown. And I've probably, that's one area where I've probably grown the most over the last 18 months. I've very much been aware of people that you don't see every day because you have had one week after another, and different states and different areas have been affected differently. So, I think it's crucial that businesses train people to have what can sometimes be the uncomfortable conversations. People need to feel that they trust their leader and trust their line manager to have an open and honest conversation as to how they feel. But you also need to be equipped to know how to answer.
Yeah. I think that's great to hear. And certainly, as a society, our awareness is growing every day. And just watching even some of the news shows last night, making reference to where support is, accepting the fact we're in a lockdown. For some people, that's a pretty easy place to be. For others, actually, it's quite tough. If they're living on their own and they're missing a lot of the interaction that they get if they don't have a family around them.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah. Looking at your career and as it's developed, Chris, have you found that how you approach a decision on your career changes as you become more senior? Because I guess the moves you make are potentially bigger for you. They're bigger for the business you're joining at a more senior level. Does your kind of decision making process change?
Oh, look, for me, 100% it does. As you get older and you go through that life cycle, the decisions for me are taken a lot more carefully, and there's probably two reasons. First one's probably family and personal life and background has changed. You think of some of the places where I've been fortunate enough to work, either companies or around the world. There were decisions that were made because there was probably just myself and my wife. If I make a decision now about a career move, it's a family decision. I've got two daughters. I've got one that's just started at high school, one that's going to be starting high school sort of in a couple of years' time. You have to have that consideration as to the upheaval that it's going to potentially cause if it's another move away from where they've been pretty stationary for the last sort of 5 or 6 years. I've got a wife that's got a very successful career. So again, the decision there can't just be a solo and a selfish one. So I like to be around. I like to know that I'm home for dinner as many times as possible. So if I'm taking a role and it involves moving, it has to be a group decision. If I'm taking a role and it's going to mean just a lot more hours and time away from the family, it has to be a family decision. But then on the flip side, to your point, it's then also about the experience that I've had enables me to look at the business I may be going to, or the next role I might be moving into with a very different lens. I've got that experience now. So you start to look at what is the opportunity, what is the culture, what am I going in to face, what do I need to do? So the decisions now for me, I ask a lot more questions as and when they need to be asked around what potentially the next move could be.
And is that a lot of that at a senior level is because I guess your role as a sales director or GM or is it has such a business impact. So the direction and the strategy and the even things I guess around the structure of a business must play a role. Whereas if you're more in a junior to mid-level role, it's more about the technicalities of the role, the specifics of the tasks you're going to be doing, and the experience you're gathering, in a sales or marketing career. But as you become more senior, the business-wide issues must play a bigger part for you.
It does, and this is the beauty of the business that I'm in at the moment. It's the first time I've been involved with, say, a private equity owned business. So you get exposure to a lot more. I mean, even in the last 18 months, for the first time, I've been actively involved with acquisitions. Because what is the impact on me and my team and my department of us buying a company or buying new brands? But you're right. You also, for me, you go in. Are you developing a strategy, or are you moving into the next move and inheriting someone else's strategy that you've just got to deliver? That is always a key question for me. Is it culturally fit and working, or is it broken and you've got to go in and change things? Because again, they're all big, meaty decisions that you need to take. How much exposure am I going to have to other departments that I may or may not have experience in? When you're in the pharma industry, you get a huge amount of experience to sort of the regulatory world. And I'm no regulatory expert, but I know enough when talking about marketing or sales campaigns within the within the consumer health space as to what can and can't happen. Yeah. So yeah, you do, and for me, it sort of does just come with that experience. And there might be times where an opportunity comes up and it's not the right one for me, or it's not the right one for you, because you might be pushed into a space that you don't enjoy, and again, that makes it a struggle if you've gone a level too far, or you're moving too quickly. Then you sometimes don't have that enjoyment, and work can be a tough time if you're not going in smiling and enjoying it.
Completely, and that probably remains the same no matter what level you're in.
Yeah, agree.
Chris, I know that you've got some mentors that you work with, and
Yep.
You invest time in that relationship. When making a career decision, often mentors can be great people to talk to give perspective and an alternative view, and help you with your decision making. For those on the podcast or on the live call today, some will have mentors. Some probably have thought about it as a good thing to do, but are perhaps a little bit unsure as the process to go through. How do you select one? How do you approach one? What advice would you give, and perhaps referring to your personal experience of how you've built relationships with mentors as well?
I think the first piece that I would say is do go and seek out a mentor. I've always had that. You go back 20 years ago when I joined GSK, and it was one of the first things that as part of that induction program, we got assigned someone quite senior. I didn't really know what a mentor was when I first joined, but you got assigned someone that used to just do a check-in to see how you were going outside of your line manager, and that was what brought me on that journey as to how valuable a mentor can be. And I've continued that. I've got a couple of people now that I always bounce stuff off. People that either I've worked with previously but don't work with now. But I've also had mentors that have been within the business and within the organisation that I've been part of. I think that the biggest piece of advice I would give is, if you're going to pick a mentor, then pick someone that isn't directly interacted with your day-to-day role. So when I was at Blackmores, I used our CFO at the time as a mentor, because it enabled me to have very open conversations without necessarily having someone that would have been within our sales department. So even when I joined them as a national account manager, if I'd had sales director or someone directly in sales, then your conversation can have a bit of an edge to it. And it becomes almost like a weekly whip, as opposed to a more open and honest conversation. As I've moved on, I now use people outside of my immediate business. So I've got someone that I used to work with and did a lot of training courses with in the UK. There's a chap called Mark Grice, who runs now a negotiation business, a global negotiation business that I've used. A couple of his colleagues as well, and I also use the ex-managing director of Blackmores, a chap by the name of Dave Fenlon, who now CEO of Sukin. I catch up with those guys once a month, just to bounce ideas off, chew the fat, drop a few questions, and get some guidance and advice. But yeah, for me, I think the biggest thing is, if you're going to select one, you have to own it. I encourage my team that you have to own that relationship with your mentor. It's you've approached them, so tell them what you want to get out of it, but you have to drive that relationship. You have to seek them out. You have to sort of make sure that you're on the front foot. It's not down to them to be ringing you up saying, "Oh, we haven't spoken for a couple of weeks. Do you want to go and get a coffee?" So I think, yeah, definitely have one. Pick someone out that isn't directly impacted within your role or your day-to-day business unit, but really own it and use it as an opportunity to seek some guidance and someone else's eyes. Don't use it as a session to get answers to problems. They're not there to sort of help you cheat on the exam. They're there just to sort of maybe ask some open questions and give you a different perspective.
Yeah, I think that's great advice. I've just started mentoring somebody for the first time recently, or I've had mentored many people in the past, but we've had our first meeting, and he approached me with quite specific things he wanted doing, and I had to advise him to say, "Hey, I'm not going to be your manager." I think your phrase there, "not cheating on exam," is exactly right. I'm here to help guide you and be that sounding board for you. And if there's specific areas you want to work on, that's great, because I'm not here just to make you a better person. So I think that's great advice, Chris. But the reality is, you're 100% right. The relationship sits with the mentee. And it won't just happen for you. Like a lot of things in life, mentors won't just come knock on your door. You've got to think about, who's in your network. Who do you think is good at something that perhaps you could benefit from their experience or particular skill set, and approach them directly with that in mind. And 9 times out of 10, the mentor will be really appreciative of the approach and open to it. And it's not as scary as you perhaps think. I've never turned anyone down that's approached me, and I doubt that happens very often. So I'd encourage people to actually absolutely get out there, have a go.
And the other thing is if you don't want to approach that person directly, then have that conversation with your line manager that you want to sort of seek a mentor and get their guidance on who might be worth within the business speaking to, or get them just to sort of have a corridor conversation to say that X person's keen on selecting you as their mentor. Would you be open to it? So at least it's not a complete surprise when that phone call or conversation happens.
Yeah, exactly. Um, Another thing which I wanted to touch on, Chris, too, is around the whole concept of networking. Now,
Hmm.
a mentor is effectively somebody you're building into your network, or who maybe you're accelerating that relationship as part of your network. I often, when I meet either leaders or future leaders, talk about what time they invest in and what strategy they have for networking. And actually, it's amazing how few do. And it's often one of those yes, I must do that. I must get onto that. Is often the answer. But a lot of very successful people I talk to are great networkers, and it's something they do invest time in and they see the benefit from. Um, the excuse I hear people talk about is they're just too busy. There's too much going on in lives. The day job's overwhelming, and I completely get that. But what advice would you give people around networking when life does seem almost too busy to fit something else in?
Oh, look, I think I'd probably say that if you look hard enough, you can always find time. It's very easy to keep plowing through your inbox and keep sending another email and keep reading another PowerPoint. Right, the world's never going to stop. There's always an email to respond to. Um, but f- networking is crucial. I wouldn't be where I am today if I hadn't networked. The opportunity for me to move into this role came pretty left field, but it was because externally, I'd always carved out time to interact with other people in other businesses across the industry. Um, Internally, I think it is crucial. Businesses are big, they're wide. It's very easy to be caught up in your own little sales silo, your own little role. Um, but everyone has 5 minutes to make a coffee or a cup of tea. Everyone grabs 20 minutes to run over the road to go and grab lunch. And as long as you don't suddenly jump out of a lift and hijack their maybe their 20 minutes of peace and quiet, there is that time where you can just walk and talk. It doesn't have to be a very stale, organized 40-minute meeting in a closed room. But it's going for me. I can't endorse it enough to drive that collaborative approach, especially in sales, to go and network and have those conversations with people in other business units that interact with you in your day-to-day role. It makes your life so much easier when you have a relationship that isn't just transactional. And then sort of externally within the industry, I know it seems strange talking about it now in the environment that we're working in, but if you are fortunate enough to attend trade shows, industry conferences, things like that, then walk the floor, get off the stand that you might be on, go and talk to people, go and just start having those conversations. Because for me now, there aren't too many people that I'm not connected to within the industry. Um, and whether that's a 5 minute conversation with someone at a competitor where you're just talking sport because you don't want to get yourself into trouble, or whether it's just making sure you know everyone within your customer base, it's just so crucial. I think you can't just live and breathe off sort of a relationship between you and your customer, or you and your line manager, or the two people that sit around you in the office.
Yeah.
It's the world of networking is what makes the world go round for me.
I think it's actually, I'll attest to your networking because actually I spoke to three people yesterday who voluntarily said to me, "You've got Chris Sadler on the incubator tomorrow." I've met Chris, a conference. So I've met Chris over the years. We've got a good relationship. So your network is very real, and I think that was interesting just to get that replayed 3 times yesterday. To me, I think often it's seen as a bit of a chore, but the reality is, if you could expand your horizon and maintain um, relationships that you take with you through your various roles and organizations you might work with. So once you move from one role to the other, you don't just drop everything in every relationship. Whether it's customers or old bosses or colleagues, maintain those relationships because they give you perspective and they give you the ability to think more broadly. And to be able to problem solve more effectively, to be able to be better at your job, because you're not just operating in the confines of the role with the people immediately around you, which is of course the most important people in your close network in that moment in time. But with the perspective of others, then your ability to make a better decision and to be better at your job just accelerates up. So one, it's the right thing to do. You were better at your job. But secondly, the many people I see who just drop everything when they move from one role to the next. And I was interviewing someone yesterday who talked about an example in one of the questions I asked around aligning stakeholders in a difficult scenario, and he was able to relate back to the fact that the person he had to get online with this particular challenge in this customer was somebody he dealt with 3 roles ago, and he'd always kept in touch with them. So the relationship was really solid, as opposed to, hey, remember me? I used to work with you 10 years ago. We've never spoken since, and it becomes an awkward relationship to manage. But because he's invested just a bit of time, he was able to really use that relationship to great effect. So it does make a practical difference to your job.
Oh, it does. And look, it's a lot easier nowadays as well. And I sound old saying some of this stuff, and I kid myself that I'm not as old as I am. But little messages on LinkedIn, little comments on posts. It's very, very easy now just to connect. And it is. The world is a small, small place. I mean, when I deal with someone at Woolworths now that I used to deal with at Tesco's 15 years ago. And it is, you move around and you have really great people in your team that would follow you into battle. So if you moved on, some people will have a list of who they'd always take with them. But it's also very, very, very true. Don't burn any networks, even if you've got some frustrations. If you're going to exit a role, then don't go out in a blaze of glory. It's you never quite know where people are going to turn up, and it's for me that networking piece is crucial. And I've been across various industries. Majority of them have been healthcare with GSK and Blackmores, and now Inova, but like you said, there's Heineken, there's British American Tobacco in there, and so I know you sort of had Peter on this podcast, and I'm still well connected within the alcohol and the liquor business from my time within Heineken, and it's interesting still to go to these forums where you don't need to necessarily talk about your industry, but you can talk about the challenges you face and what you might face in soft drinks, or what you might face in liquor, or what you might face in healthcare. The chances are you're all facing the same challenges when it comes to range reviews with a grocer, or sort of price increases with a big global pharma business, or how we're now doing business with Amazon. You can take the micro detail out of it, and you can really learn things from that network. And I still speak to people that are completely disconnected from this industry. I've got a couple of good colleagues that I bounce ideas off that are with well, it was CCA. I forget what their new name is now. But with Coca-Cola in North Sydney, and you still have those same conversations with them as to the challenges that you face with dealing with certain customers. And it's only because I always flick them a text, quick message on LinkedIn, that over the last 10, 15 years, you can still reach out, and like you said, they know who you are.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's jump on to, I guess, your role as a sales director, and some unpacking some of that, Chris. A lot of national account managers, even business managers, but people in the more formative career stages will look at your role and think, for instance, what goes on at top to top? Now, they might occasionally get invited to one, but I imagine it's something you do a lot of. Just bring to life the mystique of that meeting. What actually is a top to top, and what happens there?
Oh, look, they're not that mysterious. If you ask to attend, you might then regret that you've asked. Look, for me, a top to top, certainly with a customer, the one thing that goes on there is honesty. Is what I talk to my team about when they have top to tops. As a sales director, you need to be aware as to which ones you're going to. I make myself available for all customer meetings. If my team want me there, I don't need to be there. They're fully empowered to go to these key meetings without me. going back to what we've spoken about before, I like to go because it continues to network. You continue to build a wider relationship. One of the big things for me when you're at these top to tops is to try and have a wider group of people to build your network and your relationship with that customer. If you think of it from a very simplistic grocery relationship, the world of dealing with Coles and Woolworths, as much as some NAMs don't want to admit it, is bigger than NAM and buyer. And the top to tops are a very good way of keeping everyone true and honest. So for me, it's quite a simplistic process. We have them every quarter in my business. You might jump into half year, full year, if you've got joint business plans in place that are signed up to by you and the customer, that you're on track, off track. There might be emergency ones that you have. Price increases are always key, top to top conversations, and are quite interesting ones. But it's, for me, as I said, it's about honesty. It's about reviewing how the last 12, 13 weeks have been. What worked, what didn't work. I tend not to focus too much on the past in these top to tops. As a phrase I use in the office, you can't unring a bell. So the top to top should be about the future, the next 12, 13 weeks. How are you tracking against your metrics and your KPIs that you've got in place between you and the account? But the biggest thing that I do is get as many department heads around the table as you can, as long as it's aligned with who's on the other end of the top to top. I don't like 10 on one side, 1 on the other, because you're not going to battle. It is a collaborative, cohesive approach with your customer. The fact that they've given you the time for a top to top. So, but if you've got supply chain issues, bring the supply chain director in. If you're about to launch a new digital campaign, bring your head of digital. I take marketing with me if we've got above the line campaigns that we want to talk about. But I'm no expert. I might be a sales leader, but I bring the experts with me. So head of category will come, the business manager will come. They own the day-to-day relationship. They're at the coalface. I'm very respectful of that. I make sure I have a brief of any curveballs that may or may not come up. I always use myself as devil's advocate. If they need a tough message landed, then I take that on. I'm happy to land that message to keep the day-to-day conversation going. But yeah, there isn't a huge mystique about them, but they are crucial. And if you haven't had one, then get one in the diary and make sure that you get your management team lined up behind you and fully briefed as to why you want to organise one. Or if they're happening and you're not part of them, then ask to be part of them, because it's all part of your L&D. It's all part of your networking. It's all part of displaying what you can do as a brand in your business.
Yeah, good advice. I think for those who haven't been part of them, then great meetings. Well, as you say, potentially great meetings to be part of. But
yeah, if done right, even the price increase meetings can be good fun.
Great. Now you mentioned category there, and we had a conversation a couple of weeks ago in the marketing director incubator about where category should sit. And
yeah.
It's interesting because I'm doing a lot of work in category right now, and I think a lot of companies are challenging themselves about the role of category. What is it there to do? Ensuring it's strategic enough, as well as adding value at a commercial level. So I got a perspective from a marketing director a couple of weeks ago, Seb Brandt, who is the CMO of Ingham's, ex PepsiCo, Red Bull, interesting background. Now, same question to you, Chris. Should category sit within the sales structure? Should it sit within the marketing structure? Should it sit independently? Does it matter? What do you think?
So controversially, I have a strong view on where it shouldn't sit. So I don't think it should sit with marketing. I have experienced all three in different businesses. I've had the category team as part of my sales team at Inova. We've made a very interesting change, which is working really, really well. So we have now separated it from sales and marketing, and we've put it into our commercial excellence team. So category now sit with the same team that are responsible for, say, pricing and are responsible for innovation. And the reason that we've done that, and it is working really well, is because you get, or certainly I feel that I get a much more holistic view on the support that they can actually offer both sales and marketing as a department, without them sort of having a slight bias to producing anything that leans towards something that should hit the market, or even I used to use them for the benefit of making sure that the story they told benefited sales. Now, whether that's right or wrong, it was the way that I ran it from a sales perspective. It was a second arm of sales. There wasn't many customer meetings that category didn't attend with the NAMs. They don't need to be there in the main commercial decisions, but they can be very black and white. They can have that nice approach of just what the data says and how we think we can implement it, and then step away and let the marketeers and the sales guys then decide how they make that data a success. So yeah, I've probably moved from being the typical sales director that says categories should sit with sales, and I am now a convert to saying they should have their own voice. They should have their own seat on the board or sit separately from those two. But yeah, whether it's controversial or not, the times where I've been in businesses where categories sat with marketing, for me, having always been a sales guy through and through, has never been the best place for them.
I think I'm with you. I think the natural evolution of category is to sit independently, and therefore you're not necessarily aligned to the brand or the customer. You're genuinely taking a category approach, and you can provide independence of thought, more strategic perspective. I think layering in, revenue management, commercial planning, potentially commercial excellence. So those are the things that I think could really make quite a meaty department actually, and give the head of that department certainly a lot of responsibility in the business that should earn them a seat on the board.
Yeah, completely agree.
On that leadership group. So I think we're aligned. I wasn't sure we were going to be. That's
we are.
Yeah, good. Okay. Now we're getting close to time, but one of the things I did want to talk about in your bio, you talked a bit about the a passion for high performing teams. Now, a lot of people talk about that, Chris, but it's I'm really interested in your take. So you've worked in different industries, different countries, different markets, and therefore I've had a lot of contrasting experience. When you go into a new role, and if your goal is to build a high performing team, I guess first of all, what does high performance look like to you? And how do you, is there a formula you put in place, steps you've learned at work to go through? How do you approach that?
Oh, look, I think if you ask any leader what high performance means, you'd probably get, if you ask 10 people, you'd get 10 answers. Look, for me, it's something that I am passionate about, something that you do a lot of reading and a lot of listening on. For me, it's about building those teams that have the empowerment. It's about building teams that have a culture that they enjoy working in. I stole a phrase from someone that I heard speak around teamship. Building a high performing team is around having teamship. So there is a leader, there is someone there that people have that they can turn to for guidance. And I'm a leader in my business, but I'm only a successful leader because of the team that I have around me. So for me, I've built a team of experts. I've got a team that I completely trust and empower to make their own decisions. I don't need to be in the micro detail of everything that they do. But I also need to be there to make sure that we're all on the same journey. So for me, when building a high performing team, it's about sitting down with that team, almost creating like a team code of conduct, having something that we're all aligned to, that we've all written, that we've all signed up to. It's about being on a single path to success, but giving everyone the space to be successful in their own right. So it's giving them that level of empowerment. People build culture, and empowered people are happy. They are trusted. They come with those key deliverables or non-negotiables that I put in place with my team. You have to be honest. You have to be committed. You have to have integrity. You have to be all those to be part of a high-performing team, and to be part of my high-performing team. That's what I instill. But it's something which I continually learn and expand on as you look to bring people through, develop people, make sure you've got a team constantly growing. Nothing makes me happier than knowing that you've got someone to a point that they can move on and continue to succeed in their career and within, whether it's within your business or externally. But yeah, you have to provide some guidance. You have to be there to make sure the culture is on track. But ultimately, surround yourself and build your team with people that are experts in what they do and are left and empowered and trusted to do their job.
Fantastic. I think that's a great question to finish on, Chris. Really enjoyed the conversation. Time flies.
It does.
When you're having fun, and that's 8:45. So we will let people get away and into their lockdown day. But thanks so much for sharing your journey, Chris. And we got into some really interesting topics today. As always, I feel we could have another hour-long conversation on top of that. But I really
thank you
your time this morning, guys. Coming up next, just to give you a heads up, will be as usual lots of comms around the programs and sessions coming up on LinkedIn. But the Marketing Director Incubator. Next up, we have Adam Ballasty on the 15th of this month. Adam set up and ran the Seedlip business, which is now part of Diageo. So Adam was general manager for that. Really interesting business. So super. And Adam's the next marketing director of Diageo. So lots to talk about in terms of his career on July 15th. Next Sales Director Incubator is a couple of weeks after that. 29th of this month. So we've got three sessions this month. We've got Esme Borgelt, who's the Managing Director of Kellogg's, coming on. So great to get a couple of MDs on this year. Esme's pathway to MD is via Sales Director. So she'll talk about the step from Sales Director up to MD. So I'm really looking forward to get into the conversation with Esme. So two crackers coming up. Chris, really enjoyed once again the session. Thank you.
No, thank you for having me.
That's all right. And as always, if you're not a subscriber, why not get on to Your Future in Sales and Marketing, where you can re-listen to Chris's session in about a week's time. We'll have that up on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and all available platforms. Please subscribe, rate us, and review. It helps others find the podcast, as well as doing wonders for all of our egos. So thanks, Chris, once again. Everybody enjoy the rest of your week, and see you in a couple of weeks' time. Thanks, then.